What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm also going to break down some big news that's coming out as President Trump's administration are considering restricting software exports. We're going to talk about what that means for the markets and why it's causing some downside and some key levels to watch for as time goes on. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below, or use my QR code right here to sign up. If you sign up from Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvda stock. If you deposit $2,000 or more, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvda plus a $100 cash reward. Deposit $10,000 more to get $300 worth of Nvda plus $100, or deposits $50,000 more to get $1,000 of free Nvda stock plus $100. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends very soon. So please use my link down below to sign up. There's only a couple of days left. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So in my video yesterday, I said that SPY would likely bounce back up towards that 668 to 670 area. And we did actually bounce back there during the pre-market. We did see SPY touch 669. And since touching that, we've been downtrending a bit, which is a sign of weakness. So if we can't get back above the 669 to 670 zone, we got to get back above that to push higher. If we don't do that, this is looking like we're going to get some kind of like rejection right here, right? Unless we get back above this area, if we can't do that, we're going to likely reject and continue to fall back down towards the lower 660s, making lower highs. So we'll have to see what happens as time goes on. When it comes to big news coming out, part of the reason why the market's looking a little bit more bearish now is because the Trump administration is considering a sweeping plan to restrict U.S. software exports to China. That could be covering very, very wide range of products from laptops to jet engines reported. According to different sources, the measure is viewed as a response to Beijing's recent expansion of rare earth export restrictions, which would fulfill President Trump's earlier pledge to limit the critical software shipments to China. So that's a big piece of news coming out. Many officials are still evaluating the multiple options, but once again, this plan could cause lots of restrictions on global shipments of items containing US software and produced using US software as well. So that's a very, very big piece of news affecting a lot of big tech companies. But of course, we just have to wait and see what happens because there's still lots of uncertainty about this matter. This would be a very, very big update. This could be affecting, companies like Tesla, the Microsofts out there, and the list goes on. Very, very important news. It's also worth mentioning that President Trump had said that, there was the possibility of a 155% tariff that could also be put on China starting November 1st. But once again, it's not necessarily sustainable for China. President Trump also said that he wants to be nice to China, but China has been very rough with us over the years because we have had presidents that weren't smart from a business standpoint. So President Trump claims that he's just trying to retaliate based off what they're doing. They're arguing the opposite, that they're trying to retaliate based off what he's doing. So it's just a back and forth argument. But the main thing is that tensions still remain very high between the US and China. So which is why you want to be very, very careful. Besides that, today's Thursday, October 23rd. We just had existing home sales coming out very soon at 10 o'clock a.m. And at 11 o'clock a.m., we have the Kansas Fed Composite and Manufacturing Index alongside the 4 and 8 week bill auctions. This may cause some volatility, so be ready for this. Besides that, the reaction to Tesla's earnings now is kind of nuanced because, if anything, we did see a bit of a sell-off after Tesla's earnings, but we're at some key support. We're going to see if Tesla could bounce off that support or not. If it doesn't, due to these new export control restrictions that are being threatened, that could cause Tesla to dip more, and that's going to be more negative for the markets. So what's happening so far, we're going to go over this chart. Looking at SPY, there is the possibility of a shorter term like head and shoulders here if we're about to get some kind of rejection. I want to see us, I do think we push a little bit when we open to 668, but we need to get above 670. We got to get back above 670 for there to be some hope for bulls. You got to get back above that 670 range to kind of invalidate this downtrend, because if we don't get back above 670, if we reject near 668, then there's going to be a risk of us doing something like this, turning down and making new lows, especially if 665 breaks, we're going to be more bearish. So those are your levels. If we lose 665, it's more bearish. If we break past 670, we could try to turn more bullish. But overall, it's looking like we had like this rejection right here. We came down, now we're making a lower high, another rejection, which could take us a lot lower. In fact, we could be even like, returning to some of these lows down here for a big rug pull. So that is what could be coming if we get some kind of rejection. So we'll see, just to be safe. But honestly, guys, here's how I see this. I would not be surprised if we basically try to go a little bit higher. So look for a 668 retest. And we need to get back above 6.7. If we don't, be ready. We could turn back down to 665. And we're going to see if 665 holds. If it doesn't hold, get ready for more downside. If it does hold, we could continue to range trade like this. Some kind of pump move within a rejection is very possible unless we hold above 670. So keep that in mind, guys. The market does favor the downside a little bit more, and I would warn us to be very, very careful. So I was right that the market would bounce from here. We are actually near 668 to 670, but it could just be a lower high. If we don't take out 670, we could always reject, and there is that risk of us getting some kind of rejection, making a lower high. So be careful. I could say the same thing about the triple Q. On the triple Q, the same thing is going on. We push towards the resistance near 607. My prediction was that we would get close to like 608. I think we came a little short. And we're going to be watching to see if this is like a head and shoulders. We need to take out 608s to push for 610. If we can't even come close to 608 or even break it, there's going to be a risk of us returning to the low 600s. And if 600 fails, let's expect us to dump quite hard. It looks like we had this resistance near the all-time high we rejected. We're trying to bounce a little bit, but here's the problem. We have not reclaimed 608 or 610. So even if we do bounce a little bit, is this going to be like a head and shoulders? Do we bounce a little bit, then reject, and eventually turn right back down? We'll see about that, just to be safe. On the Russell, we're trying to bounce a bit more, looking for an attempt for 244 to 245. But I would be very careful because we're going to see if this is a lower high rejection. And also, when I zoom out and go to the 4-hour time frame, we still have some gaps. There's a big gap down here at 237. So is this going to be a temporary pop to like 245? And if we can't take out like 246.5 or above, we could just kind of like reject here, then continue to fall back down to fill this gap. That's also very possible. ES, same thing. One of the problems with ES, at least for bulls, is that we still have a head and shoulders. This is a left shoulder, this is a head, and this is a right shoulder. We never invalidated this setup and we're still rejecting, so not the best of signs for bulls. We need to get back above at 67.50 at the very least for there to be some hope for bulls. May retest it, but if we can't hold above it, we might consolidate and dip back down to 66.87 or below. For NQ, same thing. This looks like a double top on NQ. Not the best of setups. We need to hold above 25,100. If we don't, there's going to be a risk of us returning back down to 24,670. I do think NQ is looking kind of weak here. We will see if it pops first before it continues to fall, but I'm seeing weakness nonetheless. Bitcoin is kind of flat here. It's trying to retest 110,000, but it might reject. Tesla, it's in the middle, so we're barely at 420. We're at support right now on Tesla. We need to hold the very psychological 420 area for that right shoulder balance before we continue to fall back down to 402. Right, I was talking about the possibility of a left shoulder, head, and right shoulder. But the other case is that we don't get much of a bounce. And if we just, we would reject here as we have new negative headlines, Tesla could also just fall straight down to 402 if 420 fails us. So if we bounce here, we could see a temporary pump before we dump, forming the head and shoulders. But if Tesla does not hold 420, it could just go straight down to 402. So be very careful with Tesla. We're at support. Nvidia looks like it might try to bounce a little bit to 181. We're kind of like range bound right now, might consolidate before potentially dipping lower, so be careful. Looking at Appl, we're at support at 257. It could bounce a little bit for like the low 260s before continuing to fall to 255. For other tickers, we also happen to have Palantir. Palantir has resistance right here around this 176 area and support at 172. We're in the middle, kind of like range bound. Might bounce a little bit for 176 before it falls. AMD is also range bound right here. We have 232 as our resistance and 223 as our main support. Might bounce a little bit before it dips right back down, so keep that in mind. Coinbase is technically on a bit of a downtrend. It might push back up to 332 before it turns back down. May see a small push for like the low 330s before we end up rejecting. Amazon, we're going to be a little bit careful with this news that came out. It might bounce a bit for like the low 220s before it potentially rejects. Meta is kind of flat here, could retest, like we're at the make or break level at 733, might consolidate here. But if we can't hold above this over time, this could still reject. We're at resistance. Google looks like it might be retesting 255, and we'll see if it rejects. And then Microsoft is favoring 523, and we'll see how it goes from there. Also, the VIX has a gap down here, might reject a little bit before it tries to bounce. So I do think the market might go a little bit higher. SPY could try to retest like 668, maybe even 670. But like I said before, it could just be another lower high rejection. This does not necessarily mean we're going to go to new all-time highs. This could be a lower high compared to the highs we saw a couple of days ago. And if we get a rejection, right, if we don't break past 670, we could still turn back down and make new lows on SPY. Same thing with the QQQ. This could be forming an inverse cup and handle. If we get some kind of rejection, this could just be a lower high. Even if we push to like 606 to 608, we could still reject and turn lower. So be very careful, everyone. Thank you all for listening. I want to give you guys a very unbiased update, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Please have a good rest of your guys' days, and I'll be back very soon with another update. Thank you for listening, and peace out.